Dear all, I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'm going to talk about integrated thinking, integrated reporting, and system value creation. Impacts on the education of accountants. My name is Delphine Gibassier. I'm an international expert on accounting for sustainable development. I would like to talk about four different aspects of the impacts on the education of accountants since integrated thinking and integrated reporting came to life more than 10 years ago. First, I would like to talk about system value creation and how this is the most important term, I think, to trigger the next type of education for accountants. This system value term triggers long-term system thinking and really talks about the double materiality concept to avoid what we call the rebound effect. I would like to talk also about the Chief Value Officer, the necessary and important aspects of hybridity, and what I call the crossover CFO. We'll talk about the competencies for that new world and then personal and systemic change needed to achieve this. So what is system value creation? This is a term coined by Future Fit that is used often also by the think tanks R3.0, which we have embedded in the work that we currently do in the research center that I direct. First, I'd like to use this slide from Future Fit, which I think is really triggering and the change and really showing you what is important when you are talking about performance for a company today and tomorrow. As you can see here, you have a current state of your company today. Often what you will do is that you will compare your progress relative to a baseline. You will compare it to other companies, or you will progress to short-term goals. Unfortunately, this is not enough. This is not what we require today. What we require today for a future fit company is to assess the gap to a desired future state. That's what we're going to talk about. And this is key. This is really key to what the education of accountants should be based on tomorrow. So to achieve this next future fit type of companies, we need to talk about what we call the sustainability context. This is also an important term, and you can see here the image on the right, taken from a work by the embedding project here. And I would encourage you to go and read actually the Road to Context. It's a very pragmatic and very thoughtful report that companies can take on to build their next performance on sustainability context. So what is it? It is a contextual strategy that acknowledges the need to operate within a set of what we call socio-ecological thresholds, considering longer timelines and a broader understanding of value creation, which is system value. As you can see, your organization is the smallest little circle down there on the right. What you can see is the bigger circle is the planet, and the second biggest circle is society. So you as an organization, and you as a CFO or as an accountant, part of an organization or part of an industry, you are part of a wider circle, which is society, and even wider circle, which is the planet. And therefore, this is the context that you actually are working in. You are all working within this context. It is not possible to ignore it anymore. This is really key to understanding how to account for sustainability in the future and how to change the way that we believe CFOs and accountants should be educated in the next century. Now, where are we today? I'm using here an image that was designed by Bilbao from R3.0 based on a study, on an academic study from the Journal of Cleaner Production, where in 2017, they looked for companies referencing to what we call ecological limits or planetary boundaries. We'll talk about that in a minute. And as you can see, the very small circle is 31 out of 40,000 reports that they studied for a period of 2000 to 2013 are referencing to ecological limits. This is very poor, of course, but now this is changing, and I'll show you examples of leadership companies that are doing differently, and of course, the way that you can integrate that into the education of accountants for tomorrow. That is, there are planetary boundaries and social foundations. This is the sustainability context we just talked about, and this is key for the education tomorrow. Now, what is Planetary Boundaries? Planetary Boundaries is a work by scientists from the Stockholm Resilience Center. You can refer to the 2009 or the 2015 paper. It gives you 9 planetary boundaries, and it gives you the state of those planetary boundaries when they have been calculated for Earth, for society as a whole. And you can see in red the ones that have already been that are of which we are already over, and the ones in green which are at the moment okay. But you can see the circle where the boundary where it goes over is actually quite close for a number of them, including, as you can see, ocean acidification. So this is the context. This is the planet context, the bigger circle we were talking about. And this is kind of the budget. If we want to use accountant's term, this is planet's budget. And the budget is scarce. The budget is already overblown for some of the planetary boundaries. We need to take that into account when you are an organization, a territory, a town, a country, and when you account for sustainability. Now, to make it a bit more complex, but also much more interesting and much more real to us, there is also what we call the social foundations. And those have been coined by Kate Howes, and she's put together what we call the DOUGHNUT. In her DOUGHNUT economic book from 2017, you can read about the 12 dimensions of social foundation, which are derived from the UN Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Those are the inner circle, and the circle that you can see above is, of course, the planetary boundaries we've just talked about. And what makes it more real, but also much more difficult to achieve, is that where you need to be, where we all need to be, is the safe and just space for humanity. Now, to come to some definition that will show you and demonstrate what we really need and why I use the term system value and why this term is absolutely key to the future of organizations and how they account for sustainability and how accountants should take it forward in their education programs. As you can see here, and the source is also future fit in that matter, you can see shareholder value and shared value. Now, what we call system value are those circles that we were talking about just a few minutes ago. You need to rethink value creation through a systems lens. Business addresses societal needs in a holistic way with not hindering progress towards a flourishing future. This is what we mean. R3.0 coined its own definition of system value, which is system value can only be created when the outcomes of a business model maintains capital stocks and flows within the thresholds of their carrying capacity. And this works both for the planetary boundaries and, of course, for the social foundations. Now, how does this change the question for you? Going back to the work of the embedding projects, today what you're doing is, how much could we reduce our emissions? Tomorrow, what you need to be doing is, how much do we need to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions to do our part in meeting the long-term goals of keeping the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees or even 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels? That is the difference of thinking when you come to use system value. this is what you should be talking about. This is the brown question, the question in brown. A different type of approach also is when you're setting your goals, your targets for performance. Right now, what you say is companies are setting goals to bring their own direct operational performance in line with social ecological thresholds. However, often above 80% of your impact are not in your operations, they're in your supply chain for many reasons, and you are responsible for that. You have operational responsibility for that. Much of the true impact of the business lies in their supply chain, in what their customers do. What do you do with your computer, your phone, your jeans that you're wearing every day? How do you actually wash it? This is really important. So what role could we play in helping others reduce their emissions? This is also extremely important in the way that we should now account for system value creation. This is an example of a company who has been working, and there are more of them. That's not the only one, of course. A company that has been working with the Stockholm Resilience Center to assess its current sustainability practice and metrics, and to think about their 2030 strategy to incorporate the Planetary Boundaries framework within their thinking. And this is L'Oréal. But there are more of them. You can look for it in the Future Fit example. You can look for it in who is working currently with the Stockholm Resilience Center. There are more and more companies who know that performance will only be achieved if we are talking about planetary boundaries, social foundation, allocations to companies through system value creation. I would also like to emphasize the importance of looking at what we call the double materiality concept. It's extremely important not to think of just the impact of biodiversity or climate change on your company. This will not make the cut. Why? Because of what we call the rebound effect. The rebound effect means that if you care only on short-term, currently potentially financial effects of climate change on your company and do not take into account the impacts of your company on climate change, you will see the rebound effect in your financial statements, sometimes even before you think it might have happened. So it's extremely important not to think that you can actually disconnect those two aspects. Of course, when you're in a company, you're going to think, how is that affecting me? However, if you're not into the circle, if you're not looking into the double materiality concept, you are actually going to put your company into jeopardy. So system value creation and the double materiality aspects are key to the education of accountants tomorrow. Now I'd like to talk about the Chief Value Officer. This term was coined by Mervyn King in 2016 in his book with Jill Atkins. And I'd like to state two things about how and what Chief Value Officers should be. And that is hybrid and crossover. First, what is a CVO? I'm using here the definition of the IRC and IFAC from November 2019. The CVO's role must ensure that all relevant aspects of value creation, and you could even add system value creation and destruction, are accounted for and communicated to boards, management, and external stakeholders. So to achieve this, new types of accountants, they need to be able to give insights and have deep knowledge about purpose, value, strategy, risk and opportunity, business model, and behind that, sustainability. What is sustainability? What is social environmental sustainability? Right? And how does this affect you, and how do you affect that the sustainability of our world tomorrow? I'd like to say, because this is, of course, something that is really important, there are today companies who are moving to having chief value officers. They don't always use the exact term, but you can see from their responsibilities, from how they take into account that into their decision-making processes, that the role of the CFO is expanding, and it's expanding extremely rapidly. I use those three examples, but you could also say, for example, that Christophe Babule from L'Oréal, who has been taking into account sustainability for a number of months now and being really speaking about how this is important to the sustainability of L'Oréal, is also, in a way, addressing the system value creation of the company. I'm going to talk maybe about the example of Rishi Kara, which is the CFO of Olam, one of the CFO of Olam, and the one responsible for finance for sustainability. Why am I talking about them in particular? Because not only have they really started embedding, but they have a team for that, and they have a tool for that, and they have very quietly developed an extensive approach to including that into their decision-making processes, and doing quite a number of examples of calculations that are used today. So I would encourage you to look at those examples, to think about how this could be made your own, to look at everything that is available, for example, on the website of Accounting for Sustainability, because tomorrow this is going to be something that is going to be becoming mainstream. And it's not in a number of years, it's not in 10 years. This is really rapid. This is a number of months. Now, to come to also very important point, we are not here to fit sustainability into accountant's role. And this is extremely important. It's not about trying to fit small aspects or different aspects, or trying to cram sustainability within accounting. This is not going to work. You can't put the complexity, the system thinking into account today, monetize it, and think this is all okay. This is not going to make the cut. What we need is to enlarge the role to become a CVO, sorry. I'm talking about here about the different capitals using the IRC octopus, but you could think of all different aspects of how to integrate it within management control, within internal audit, within your accounts, with using multi-capital accounting. In any case, you will have to expand your knowledge. You will have to expand your techniques. You are not going to be able to stay on what you know today. To become a chief value officer, to become an accountant for sustainability, you will need to step into the unknown. You will need to gather some knowledge about what sustainability is, what is climate change, what is the natural science or social science behind poverty, human rights, etc. So most important is the hybridization of knowledge and competencies from, becoming a strategizer, a long-term thinker, and working into partnerships. Of course, when you are an accountant by training, which I am also, it's really difficult to step into the natural sciences part of what climate change is, what biodiversity is, but you need to do so. And to make it real into your company, partner with your colleagues, partner with external NGOs, partner with academics to do so. Do not think that you can solve it by yourself. Partnerships, the SDG 17 is the most important to get to where we need to be. You will, of course, need to integrate sustainability knowledge from the natural sciences and social science. Yes, you will. This is really important, not to think that you should just, as I said, cram things into what you know. You need to expand. Double entry to multiple entries. The world is messy. Social and environmental stuff, it's messy. You will need to take it into account. From financial data to fluid and certain sustainability data. Yes, it's not as easy. Yes, sometimes we have 30% to 50% of unknown within the data we use. But yes, you still need to account for it. You still need to take it into account now into your daily job. So this is the hybridization of knowledge and competency. Really important that we think about the accountant plus and not something that we cram in. The crossover CFO. Why the crossover? Because of partnerships. Because you need to be the one to go and get the knowledge. You need to be the one to offer possibilities to work with you. And here I've cited two elements from the report that we published with two colleagues with the IMA in 2018. For example, we said sustainability CFOs are there to invent the accounting metrics of tomorrow. It is true. We don't have everything today. We have a lot. There is harmonization ongoing. We know the ASB, we know the EFRAG, we know many different arenas are working to make those accounts better. And this is really important. But the CFOs need to step in, like they have done, for example, by working and breaking the knowledge into the accounting for sustainability knowledge base. This is important. Business partnering and education, go and get the senior management involved. Go and get your colleagues involved. Say you're ready to help. And sometimes it's not easy to come to a CFO and say, let's talk about sustainability. Do it yourself. Go and get them in. And as an accountant, volunteer to actually bring some of your knowledge into sustainability and vice versa. Now about competencies. I'll say a few ones, but I'm sure, and there was a competency metrics designed by the IRC, and there are some work going on also in South Africa to bring some degrees in place, as well as the one that we've created at Audencia. So here are some examples of where we need to be. In terms of technical skills, you'll need to learn how to account for multi-capital performance. That means all the 6 that are in the IRC, but even, ones that you could imagine. I remember looking at Vivendi's capitals where they had a cultural capital. You need to think about measuring those capitals and integrating that. And measuring is not always monetizing, it is measuring. And that's key. That's the most important part of it. Earth will not count with green money. It counts with climate change, CO2, it counts with species, ecosystems. So you have to measure that, and you have to understand that before you would at some point be able to monetize, if that's actually really necessary. Sometimes it's actually not. Be an expert in multi-capital performance and audit, and master the strategic sustainable development performance for your company. You have to learn to think long-term, and that's to the opposite of what we do today. We look at the past, we look at the next year, we sometimes look at 3 years, but we are very much driven by very short-term thinking. And in our case, saving a species is going to take 30 to 50 years. So you're going to have to think about beyond you, beyond this potential stance of your current CFO, CEO, to acquire a very long-term vision focused on multiple stakeholders and become the change navigator that supports the business model in their transformation. Now, also very critical content, future knowledge that you will need to know. Regenerative business model, blockchain and artificial intelligence will need to be included. A critical history of accounting for sustainability, and intercultural accounting for sustainability knowledge and understanding. We have very different understanding of what sustainability is and how to account for it if you're in South America, North America, Europe, Japan, China, Australia, not to even mention the indigenous knowledge, which is absolutely key in the natural sciences. So this is really 4 critical content to include in your education for accountants tomorrow. Now, what about the personal and system exchange needed? I'll finish with that. First, all chartered accountancy bodies are to integrate the technical and hybrid knowledge and competencies in their curriculum. And I know how it works. I know how the changes are built up. We've talked and we've seen changes in the curriculum in Canada, in France, etc. The problem is there's no space. It's already really difficult to actually integrate sustainability. So why not, as a start, actually require a two-legged examination? This would be a first step to say you can't be a chartered accountant anymore if you don't have the 2 examination. I mean, it's not perfect, but we got to get there. We've absolutely got to get there. All business schools to take the lead to integrate double certifications in their program. Business schools currently have so many students, their impact is enormous all around the world. We need in accounting and even in other areas, but let's talk about accountants today, to have double certifications. We have that innovation currently at Audencia, but I would say, let's do it. Let's bring it. You will need to upskill the accountancy professorship to include both legs. Currently, professors, including myself, were not trained into sustainability when we were at school. There was no sustainability training 20 years ago. So currently, professors actually find it extremely difficult to embed that into their accounts, their teaching. We need that. We need the upskilling today, now. We need to help them. We need to bring textbooks. We need to bring case studies. And last but not least, we need a complete overhaul of IT systems, including ERP, to capture sustainability data. We are extremely late and companies are struggling with the data, which is all over the place. We, as accountants, use those IT systems on a daily basis. Let's go and get the ERP companies. Let's go and get them. The IT systems need to change today. And not for one time a year, for including them as regularly as accounting data is being made. Let's use blockchain. Let's use artificial intelligence. Let's bring everything together to make the accounting possible. In terms of personal change, embrace the unknown, right? It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. As an accountant, to be trained to account for sustainability, you are going to step into areas where you are not comfortable, and that's actually okay. Train yourself in sustainability, hybridize yourself, and train yourself in accounting for sustainability. But train very profoundly. Be very, very, very careful of competence washing. We see that on a daily basis today, unfortunately. And you can see the post by Kim Schumacher on LinkedIn, for example, and what he has written and his studies about that. Train yourself very concretely in sustainability and accounting for sustainability. And that's not the same. You need the natural and social sciences, and you need to know how to account for sustainability. Expand your knowledge. Do not cram into accounting. Change, question, expand accounting. This is key. I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today, and I hope you enjoyed this 30 minutes with me, and I wish you all a very good day and hope that we can engage and interact later on social media, or if you'd like to contact me, you can. Thank you very much.